I would like to take this opportunity once again to thank all of our sponsors, in particular Moonstone Bank, who I neglected to mention earlier on, was our sponsor for our opening keynote. And thank you, Moonstone, for your support today. I want to, yes, big support, big round of applause. And a member of our upcoming panel here. I want to take this opportunity to once again thank all of our sponsors, including Double Delicious, Skagit Organics for being our co-presenting sponsors, Washington Bug Company, Snowco Packaging, Parker Smith and Feek, Canna Co, Car Tuttle Campbell, and Sound Cultivation. Truly, you are the fabric of what made these conversations happen today. And with that, without any further ado, I will introduce Oscar Velasco-Schmitz as our moderator for our upcoming panel. Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Really appreciate it. In addition to the land acknowledgement that Burl provided this morning, I'd like to also acknowledge the other Lachute Seed speakers in the area and other native languages that may be in the room. So thank you so much. I want to acknowledge my co-founder of Dockside Cannabis, Aaron Varney, who's in the audience today. And all the policymakers that have joined us today, as well as you for bringing yourselves here today. Thank you so much. So our panel today is, and I'm looking at my notes again, equitable capitalization and commerce. And I want to just address the elephant in the room. This is not something new. You see this across industries that do not have access to traditional capital. And what that means is that private equity ends up funding it. And so private equity is either attained organically because you've grown the business or you've grown the enterprise wherever you are, or there's historical access to that capital. And how that capital was created, whether it's through earnings or appropriation, that's for the discussion today. And so thank you very much. I'm going to go around today and I'm going to have our speakers briefly introduce themselves because I want to have participation from the audience today and have questions there. So Adam, why don't we start with you? Thank you so much.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a wonderful event. I've mentioned to the organizers, this is the first live event I've been at since the before times. And it's just been, I have to tell you that on my way here, there was a piece of my brain that was thinking, wow, what am I actually, and it wasn't because I was afraid of being sick, just having not done this for so long. And I'm so, so happy to be here. Thank you all for. So my name is Adam Smith. I'm the founder of the Alliance for Sensible Markets. We have been working since late 2018 on opening up interstate commerce without waiting for Congress to get its act together. We passed a law in 2019 in Oregon to allow the state to enter into agreements. Obviously, one state does not interstate commerce make. That law allows the state to enter into agreements as soon as either Congress passes a statute to allow it, don't hold your breath, or the Department of Justice, U.S. Department of Justice, indicates their tolerance through a memo or policy statement, which, as you know, is how the entire industry runs today. I would note, importantly, and I'm not going to get too deep into it, but that everything we are doing today is interstate commerce under federal law, under 80 years of Supreme Court jurisdiction. So it is not insane to say we can also ship potentially to other states. This year, we were deeply involved in creating a bill that just passed in California, was signed by Governor Newsom. And we are working with a coalition of organizations, including the Washington Cannabis Alliance and the Southern Craft Growers Guild here, to urge our West Coast governors to approach the Department of Justice seeking, guidance on interstate commerce. We are pretty hopeful that we are getting very close to that. And with that, I will pass this along.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Mathis. It's a pleasure to see all of your lovely faces. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Cannabis Alliance, for the opportunity for me to be here and the opportunity for everyone to be here. I'm very, very grateful. Currently, I am the owner of Mathis Cooperative, which is a small consulting company where we collaborate with others within the industry to essentially circle up with what we're doing right now. We pool resources and help essentially to build each other up. I've been in the cannabis industry since it was 501, selling to the medical dispensaries, pressing rosin, driving 2-packs, all the way, started trimming and worked my way all the way up to the point where it became unaffordable to keep me. And so I started my own company. And in doing so, one of my major functions is to seek out BIPOC companies and try to offer as many resources as I possibly can to them, pro bono if possible. Since I've worked with so many of the 502 companies to see the ins and out, and we're still guarded with each other, which is to me really sad because individually there's so many specialties that we each have, and we're so guarded that we don't share them. I've been blessed enough to be part of so many different entities and to keep those in, or to see those different strategies, and without giving away any IP, be able to point people in other directions, specifically BIPOC, if I can, companies in those directions to help further. So I'm very happy to be here and speaking on this because it is near and dear to my heart. And looking forward to speaking with each one of you today. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Josie Booth. I'm the Director of Business Operations with Moonstone Bank. We are actually a 135-year-old agricultural bank, started in Farmington, Washington, and our launch of the name Moonstone Bank is recent in our digital expansion. So what we're really focused on is looking at how we can help support underbanked, underserved industries. With a specialty in line of business for cannabis and hemp, as well as crypto, blockchain, digital assets, all the fun stuff that happens in the digital assets world as well. Really, as an old agricultural bank, one of the things we're really focused on is cannabis and hemp as a specialized agricultural industry. Farmington, for those of you who don't know, and most do not, because Jesse, I think you said Tokeland was 200 people. Yeah. Farmington is 120 people. So we've got you beat.
It's called Tokeland.
Tokeland. Yes. Yeah, that's right. So Farmington, very, very small community. And again, we have about, I can't remember the statistic, but anyway, I mean, agricultural based through and through. And the majority of Farmington's business on the Palouse is multi-generational farmers. So I was just telling Mary Jane as well, one of the things that gets me really excited about this industry is that it still starts with a plant in the dirt. Which is one of my happy places. And so that's a big part for us that we're really looking at how we can help build and support the little piece of the puzzle that banks can help do in offering financial literacy and offering really folks come up with a plan for how they can get capital working best for their business growth. And expansion, and that's really one of our areas of focus as well. So again, starting agricultural, really running through the whole cannabis and hemp ecosystem, and then we have our eyes on multi-state national operation because we think that's what's really needed in order to help deliver some consistency across the board nationally, maybe internationally at some point. But one of the things that we have said is we are a Washington State chartered bank. We have committed to the Washington State Department of Financial Institutions that we will get it right here first. So we're really focused on the Washington market, making sure that we have the ability to support the industry and not just come in and say, hey, listen, we're a bank. You should really be excited about the things that we offer, but instead taking a step back and going, what does the industry really need? And then how can we deliver some solutions, products and services that help fit the needs rather than being prescriptive of what we should offer in the way that traditional banks typically have as well. So I'm going to pause there because I'm really eager to get to some questions as well, but we're really happy to be here also.
I'm Neil Janeja. I'm the founder of Gleam Law, which is a cannabis-focused law firm. We do, I think we did one of the first plant patents in cannabis, but we handle about 20% of the industry here and cannabis clients in 42 states and on 5 continents. not Antarctica yet. But there
It's a
are
goal.
two
It's a goal.
people, I think, selling weed there. And that's about all there is to say about it. We're also in psilocybin now, which is fantastic. It's not really an industry, but it is a big cultural shift. That's just going to be great for society. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you so much. So you've heard some of these folks up here. Some are issue advocates. Some are business consultants. Some of the folks are in alternative value stores and banking and providing access to that. And I'm really curious from the folks at the panel, whoever wants to take a shot of this, what do you see? We're talking about equitability, both in capitalization of these businesses, specifically in cannabis and in commerce. What are the barriers to equitability? Anybody that would like to take a plug at this?
Yeah.
What do you see?
So let me, I'm going to have a really hard time keeping, I can't answer any question without telling a story. So I'm going to try really diligently to keep these short. But you know what, again, I go back to some of our agricultural roots as a bank. To me, the worst case scenario is when I have someone who comes in, a farmer or a rancher typically, who comes in and says, I need help. I need you to tell me how to work my way out of this issue, right? And it's not that I'm scared of providing financial literacy. It's not that I'm scared of providing some consultation. But to me, my concern is that they're at a point where they're asking me to help manage a portion of their business that I don't want to do. Right. I'm not a farmer myself. I'm not a rancher myself. My best customers are people that have the right resources in place already, not just from a banking perspective, but across all the different dependencies they have to run their business. They have the right resources in place that help remove the distractions and let them do what they do best, which is actually operating their business. That's a huge key item to me. And so when I look at some of the equitability issues, right, and access to capital and commerce and everything else, my biggest desire, my biggest goal, even as a banker, is to say, how do we get the people that have the knowledge, that have the passion, that have the experience into this industry in a way that for me actually gives the most comfort and support, because I don't feel like I'm having to tell someone how to utilize their money in order to do what they do best, which is actually operate their business and help grow and expand the industry as well. So that doesn't really directly answer the question so much as what it does is I think we're looking for continuous ways that we can help partner and provide advice, and then provide products and services that, again, really help remove some of those distractions and give people that have the passion and the understanding and the ability to go and be a difference maker in this industry, really be able to do just that, to go do it and not be held back by some of the systemic challenges of getting into that, getting into the industry as well.
Josie, thank you. And again, the elephant in the room, the people that have most been impacted by the war on drugs, the inequities in our society, are people of color, Black, brown people, marginalized communities. And so the question to any of you, and Brian, I'd like to hear actually what you have to say, but do you see any initiatives out there that are helping to bring people that are marginalized, whatever community they may be in? What are some initiatives that you're seeing out there in the market to help bring people into the cannabis space?
No.
Okay, so there you have it, folks. No, nothing there. I mean,
I haven't. I don't mean to be rude about it. I just
no.
So
I wanted to make that point. The people that are up here that have insight to what those initiatives are not seeing anything. This is. I don't want to say that it's lip service by any stretch of the imagination, but it doesn't seem like there's meat on the bone. For any of this, we still have these marginalized groups. And this is not to take away from the efforts that the task forces at our state level are doing. This is merely to say that this is still an issue. There is good work. You heard the last panel. There's work within Indian country to be able to take some of those funds from their enterprises and reinvest them into the communities. Elder care, child care, dental care, all of these things. How do we equilibrate that across the society within in non-Indian country? This is not, I'm not looking for answers, obviously. I just want to point out that we're still not there. We're still building this as we develop. Okay, I'm going to shift from that. There was kind of a lob ball. Sorry about that. Markets. You have capital markets. You have labor markets, goods markets, services that make up this industry. Let's talk about the goods markets. From what you see, and any of you, maybe Neil, you might have the best of this. What would you see are the percentages of BIPOC businesses that you see out there? Under 20%? Under 10%?
It's under 10%. I mean, you get on magazine covers, like the first Black family that had dispensaries in Massachusetts were on magazine covers. And to go back to the previous issue with social equity, it's impossible because there's no way not to game the system. Any way you do it, they've already been hurt by the drug war. That's what gives them a license. They may lack the sophistication. They lack the money. They need to partner up with people who are going to rake the money out or set up option agreements or end up owning it, controlling it. And even in San Francisco, the city paid for attorneys for the minorities that got the social equity licenses, and it still didn't work. And they're still in litigation on a lot of those. There's no way not to game the system is the problem.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from that is that there are initiatives, subsidies, effectively. I mean, you have massive industries that receive subsidies from the federal government. Why not subsidize people of color? Why not subsidize marginalized groups that require that? And this is not to take away from the hard work that everybody else has done, that everybody in this industry has done to get us where we are. But I think we do have to realize that there are inequities. I think burying our head in the sand about them does nobody any good. I mean, I think at least for the organization that I'm involved in, as well as the Cannabis Alliance, bringing to bear this level playing field for people is one of the initiatives that we have as our North Star.
Sorry to interrupt.
Not at all,
But
please.
that's the very first thing that personally that I believe needs to happen is the aggressive hiring of people of color or people who've been marginalized and because of cannabis, aggressive hiring of those who have been imprisoned simply because of this plant that we're now making all of this money off of. That's the very first. The second thing is to educate, because even though you do give those license, when running a business is not easy, and most start as farmers, but here we're not vertically integrated. So these farmers have to be be knowledgeable on branding, have to be knowledgeable on all these other aspects of business where their cup of tea is growing, right? And that's one of the things I've been trying to do is help them in that direction by seeing how others have been successful and saying, hey guys, I saw them do this. You can go in that direction, or let's go speak to those people. Those types of services are where we need to initiate aggressive hiring and aggressive education.
Okay. Adam, have you seen any of these efforts take place in your neck of the world?
Not successfully, right? When I look at this issue, and one of the reasons I got into trying to open up markets, I come to this not from the industry side, but originally from the movement side. And so looking at this as an opportunity for economic justice because of the history, right? Building an industry that's accountable to its history and the communities that have been harmed in getting here, right? And so when I look at interstate commerce, I look at equity across more or less a traditional supply chain, or at least the supply chain that has been traditionally enforced against, right? And so I look at farmers in the Pacific Northwest, right, where so much cannabis has come from, historically, and then certainly in the last 20 years. And then I look in consumer markets. I grew up in New York City. We have had a flourishing cannabis industry in New York City since long before I was buying dime bags out of bodegas. And that's a long time ago now. And it's an import industry. It's always been an import industry. right? And it's fed tens of thousands of people, and it has been small business focused. And the cannabis has all come from somewhere else, right? And when New York tried to legalize cannabis, they spent 3 years trying to figure out how to get social equity. But the first thing they did when they talked about legalizing cannabis was they said, okay, we're going to start with all of the cannabis must be grown here. So they immediately turned an industry that was feeding tens of thousands of people and took the economics and turned it entirely upside down and put all the power into the hands of 10 companies that could grow 500,000 square feet of weed in Albany, New York. And everyone else in the industry was now subservient to that money. And then they're like, how can't we figure out how to have an industry that feeds the common people? Well, you got to start by understanding economics. And so to me, what we have right now is an industry where you have thousands of small farmers and producers, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, that don't have an oversupply problem, they have a market access problem. If they could access the markets they traditionally serve, we would need every ounce of cannabis we could grow under current licensure on the West Coast. Pretty close. We would certainly be getting a lot more money for it. And thousands of businesses and prospective businesses in retail, distribution, delivery, product development, small manufacturing, wellness, hospitality, all businesses that are place-based, all businesses that are appropriate in consumer markets, in places where cannabis is expensive to actually grow, could get off the ground running with a full selection and access to thousands of suppliers today. And in doing that, and in disempowering the few companies whose business model depends upon limited license, protected production, right? We can create an industry that is small business focused. And to me, having an industry that is small business focused is the first step in being able to then help small independent equity businesses get a foothold and be successful.
And then to dovetail on that, when you have a consolidation, you have economies of scale. How do you see, or maybe any of you that want to answer this, is how do you achieve that economy of scale when you effectively divide into smaller businesses? Are there any models that you've seen? Please. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. There's a big difference between small businesses consolidating because they're getting run out of business and they're selling for pennies on the dollar, and small businesses that have built something valuable that are being bought at a profit by larger companies to consolidate. And there's no problem with that. That creates wealth in communities you're looking to create wealth. You don't want to force people to stay in their businesses, right? But right now people are being pushed out of their businesses because they're going broke. Right. And that's the difference.
Okay, let me go to Josie. And this is not to put you on the spot, but yeah, we're talking about capital markets. And so are there any initiatives that your organization is undertaking to bring in marginalized groups? And let me give you an example. So right now, if your Social Security number's credit score is X and it's below some threshold, the cost of capital is going to be at a premium to you. Are there any thoughts that you have in your organization or anything that you've seen within your industry to address that?
Within the industry? No.
Okay.
I would say no. Within the industry, and again, I think that's part of the challenges. There are some systemic issues. Now, let me add this for all of my financial services constituents out there. Let me say this: we are stewards of other people's money. Okay, I'm not lending my own dollar when I make a loan. So I do have to be considerate and concerned about the people that have extra dollars that they're placing in my financial institution for safe and sound control of that money. I do have to be concerned about who I then give that money to and make sure there's at least a likely chance, right, that that's going to be given back when it's required. So I do. Part of the role of financial institutions, and even those, or I would say especially those that do have a community focus, continues to look deeply into the safety and soundness of what it is we're stewarding in those assets.
Okay. Have you explored the concept of partnering people up that have extra money with folks that may be marginalized and not have as good a credit score?
Yeah, so from that regard, and Adam, I think you're exactly right, right? There is a big difference between consolidation because of forced versus consolidation with small businesses that are actually doing something different or differentiating themselves in a market and bringing good ideas. And so that's where I think part of what we can do. Listen, a brand new startup business that may have no history, no experience, and just came into some money or an idea, a good idea that they want to execute on. We still want to be engaged. They may not be the best option to come and finance their entire idea based on a bank loan, right? Because again, they don't have the history yet to be able to show that this plan, this idea is something that actually has feasibility. So they may not be, but I still have an interest in being able to engage with them to help provide that groundwork and to help educate them on how the simple deposits and payments and lending services that a financial institution can offer, how they can develop a strategy early on that helps continue their pathway of growth and expansion as well. So those are all things that are very, very important. What I would say is that, and again, community banks in particular, which Moonstone is one, we have a vested interest in making sure that the community in which we serve sees opportunities to get credit and to grow. I mean, these are all very, very important things. And I told you a little bit earlier in one of my answers that the most important thing to me is also to make sure that we're partnering with folks that have the character, that have the experience to actually prove that I have got something better than a plan. I've got something better than a bunch of money that I came into through an inheritance, through an investor, or whatever, right? But they're actually passionate and care about success in their own model as well. So one of the things that we absolutely are focused on is continuing to make sure that in our stewardship of the financial assets that we're offering and we're helping businesses develop a strategy around, is that character remains a significant variable in all of it, right? Too many banks and financial institutions, like you said, Oscar, say, we pull your credit score. What's your credit? You're below the line. Sorry, you're no good. So for us, part of what we're doing, and we've in even how we build our lending strategy is, I don't care about the number on a page. I really don't, right? We pull a credit report. That's not important to me. What is important to me is being able to carefully assess that, does the business have the capability to repay a loan with reasonable confidence? That I'm not extending credit to a borrower that again, isn't capable of repaying and doesn't have that history of repayment. And then what really are they bringing to the table in terms of their own skin in the game to be able to give them additional motivation to make sure that they're following through on what it is. So that's really a big thing for me. Yeah, we are working diligently to eliminate some credit bureau out there gives me a number and that's the answer. Because again, for me, it's really about what's your intent? What's your motivation? Do you have some history to prove that you've got more than just a good idea? And then how can we build from that?
Josie, thank you. Neil.
You're a state regulated credit union, right?
Bank.
Commercial
bank.
Okay, so you still have to deal with regulators though, and they do look at that, and there are different risk factors
Yes,
alone.
absolutely.
Yeah, so.
But again, you're absolutely right. And so, banking is another heavily regulated industry. So that's been really part of the focus for us is making sure that we're not only educating our customers, but we're developing that relationship with our regulators to help educate them.
Absolutely.
And help really be able to develop some thought leadership that says, listen, we're taking a little bit of an alternative path that traditional banks may have taken historically. Here's why, here's where we're confident it'll work. And we're managing that engagement and conversation with our own regulators to really help drive some of the changes that we think will be most effective in the market.
That's fantastic.
Josie, thank you so much for that. I'm gonna open this up for questions. If we have a portable mic that we might be able to get into the audience. Thank you, dear President Caitlin. The gentleman in the hat.
The gentleman in the hat's name is Jim. I'm a small business owner. I also am a member of one of the task force that were mentioned earlier that are having these conversations at the state level. And I can tell you as a member of one of those task force, a lot of lip service, even inside the membership. But certainly there are some people trying their best to advocate on behalf of people of color in the state and certainly in our industry. So one of the conversations that come up is related to access to capital, right? So let's assume we're able to advocate for and successfully pass legislation that enables more people of color to have licenses in this state. The next concern is, all right, how do we enable success for those potential applicants? And so the big conversation is about access to capital and also support for those businesses, technical assistance and mentorship. And that is something that came out of that task force that the Department of Commerce has taken up and is now instituting their policies to make that effective. So my question is, when we're thinking about kind of what's happening at the federal level with safe banking, I'm particularly interested for the advocates that work in other states as well as for the commercial banker, how that potential movement on that policy is impacting maybe the access that you're seeing for capital and what banks are doing to prepare for that.
I mean, as far as safe banking, that's going to open up more FDIC insured banks that will accept cannabis banking, but I've seen almost none of them except maybe you and one or two other players that'll even do any loans to any new cannabis companies or anything that's based on a debt structuring versus real estate or something of that nature. So I don't see it getting easier without full federal legalization.
So, Jim, thank you for your question. And one idea that I've heard floated out there to be able to provide loans. Well, the issue, as Neil just mentioned, is how do you collateralize that loan? If there are no assets already in place, how is it collateralized? And one idea that I've heard is you collateralize it on the value of the license. That in and of itself has value. And so if you are able to say, here is a value store, whether it be cash or training or a facility, and we are going to collateralize that on the value store that is that license, then you've actually created something that the loan can be predicated on. So can any of you?
I mean, the problem with that is in order to get the license, you need massive capital infusion to get the premises, to build it out, to get the license issued, to go through the legal process. And at that point, you're already hundreds of thousands of dollars in almost any state in the union. I just don't see how that could work.
Hold on, Joe. Before you say so, the Chief Legal Officer Joe Vincent right here from Moonstone Bank. I know he's eager to answer that question, but we asked LCB, Oscar. We went to LCB and we said exactly that. The license has value. I don't care that you can't sell it on the open market. It has value. So can we collateralize that? They said, interesting idea. No, but Joe, go ahead, please.
Well, it's not transferable like an Alaska fishing license. Those are easily collateralized. I give that as an example. They're non-transferable. Interestingly enough, if somebody were to go under and you would take them into a special receivership under Washington state law using an authorized person that's an authorized receiver, you can create a situation whereby the entire business could be transferred through the receivership to somebody, but it's not like transferring a license. Those are non-assignable licenses.
Can you not transfer it as an asset outside of the?
No, because Liquor and Cannabis Board has to separately, independently grant a new license to the person that wants to acquire the business.
Okay, so
there are states.
Sounds like something to solve.
Yeah,
Okay. I have a broader question, and that's really what I wanted to get the con for. A lot of talk has been about, well, what about small growers? What about social equity, et cetera? Josie, I'll put it up to you. You and I have talked about agricultural cooperatives. Many an example, all over the world, in Europe and elsewhere, of people, small growers collectively coming together as agricultural cooperatives. In fact, there's a long tradition of that with apple growing cooperatives in this state. We even have a for-profit cooperative statute in this state. It's chapter 23.86 of the RCW. You get patronage dividends and things. The opportunity to be able to collectively, as an agricultural cooperative, then pool your resources to collectively get financing, where the financing community can then come out and act as a wholesaler for that. Whereas the cooperative would actually be the prime funder for that financing, working capital loans, et cetera, through the cooperative, is a very interesting idea. Could you speak to that?
Thank you. And just to keep track of time, if you could keep your answer brief. Thank you.
I will, because this is longer than a 5-minute response. But yeah, I mean, the short of it is, when you look at the whole supply chain and you're really concerned with the whole supply chain, you will find that there are absolutely areas of efficiency where when you pool the resources, when you bring together cooperative, now whether it's a legal co-op or not, you bring together cooperative resources to help find where we can build efficiencies and volumes of scale, everything else. That's really where I think we have a bigger opportunity to bring folks together rather than the banks being prescriptive about this is how you have to do it and this is the only way you're going to succeed. Again, part of it is for us is making sure we are learners in the industry and understanding where those roadblocks are so that we can help develop and deliver solutions that help make sense for the direction and the expertise that's already present in the industry.
Great. Thank you for that answer.
Hello, Mitzi Vaughn, Cartettle Campbell, lawyer. Boo. So I guess my question is, we do security interest on licenses all the time in private debt financing. We've used them successfully. The LCB has paid attention to them and they've not transferred a license until the security interest was released. And so is there some sort of is it treated differently in banking?
I think we're going to have to probably do an aside and discuss this because I absolutely agree with you, Mitzi. It's very much a property right as far as contractual, even though the LCB claims it's not property, you can still sue them for taking. You can transfer it under receivership. Very much so. So I think we definitely have different results.
I just wanted to say that out loud in case people are trying to raise money so that you don't think that's actually foreclosed.
It's absolutely an asset. The LCB will let you transfer once you meet the preconditions, TPI test, financing.
Please note that there is value in the work that you've done. So please note that. And how are we doing on time?
Oh, yeah.
We have time for maybe one more question, but I would like to hear maybe a little more weigh on this cooperative idea. We've talked quite a lot about cooperatives. We had them. There are not a lot functioning anymore. Just would love to hear the rest of the panel also weigh in on that.
Yeah, sure. Just cooperatives. I mean, Land O'Lakes, the dairy cooperative.
Well, cannabis cooperative.
Cannabis. No. I mean, there are models out there. That's the only thing that I wanted to point that to. But anybody in our panel.
I'll add, the only comment I'll say is that the discussion we've had is not our idea. So I don't want to speak for the originators of some of the interesting ideas out there, but I think there's absolutely an opportunity for a larger discussion as well.
So with co-ops, are you guys talking?
Could you use the mic?
About like aggregating more than 5 licenses in terms of.
I'm not talking about a medical co-op.
I'm talking about
commodities marketing type of cooperative. I mean, we've got
like cranberries, right? Or yeah.
Oh, really interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
When we talk about interstate commerce a lot, we hear, well, how about the small farmers, right? And you get stuck into this question of it then becomes a licensing question. Can small farmers sell directly to a retailer in another state? If they have to start going through a distributor, you start to chip away, right? But cooperatives is something that comes up again and again and again and leads to, branding and marketing in a way that, small farms can't possibly do. And I think that if you look at some of the markets outside of the Pacific Northwest, there is a tremendous, it's probably the marketing and branding may be even much more effective in a market like New York or New Jersey than it is locally here, where everything's like, oh yeah, sure, it's from, the local rural farms, so is everything else, right? And so I think that there's more value once you cross state lines. and may incentivize cooperatives more than have been.
Okay, thank you so much. We are going to extend one more question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think part of the issue here, and by the way, we have in our own city, Michael Droke, who was cited 38 times in the most recent version of USDA's navigating legal duties for agricultural cooperatives. So we have a real star here in our own city nationally on these issues. I think that, and most of my work, and I'm in industrial hemp, but most of my work is in the state of New York. And New York, of course, has the most progressive social equity cannabis program to date yet in this country. And they're running up, obviously, against these things, even though they have a massive budget for microloans, not huge loans, but microloans. They have a budget for mentoring because they have watched social equity programs, such as in California and other places, sort of fail. Sure, give folks licenses, but don't give them access to capital and any mentoring, and see what kind of success can be sown with that. The issue around cooperatives, of course, we start to get into that controlling interest versus person of interest. And when we're talking about social equity programs, closing all of the loopholes to make sure that they are truly owned by people of color is very difficult from a regulatory perspective. And so the idea of cooperatives gets even sort of more difficult from that perspective. And then, of course, ensuring, as would need to happen in any type of legislation, that if the business does fail, that license goes right back into the social equity pot and not back into some white guy, gal, or in between. And so those are all just very, very key. And I just would love for us to move forward in this state, sort of duplicating what New York is doing and improving on it any way that we can. But we're still going to be grappling with cooperative assets, access to capital for the huge capital investments that, of course, have been well brought up in this conversation.
Thank you for that comment. So I just want to thank everybody here, our panelists. Thank you for being here. I'm going to pass this back over to Caitlin, but I think we're ready for our lunch break.
Yes.
So,
thank
you all so much.
you. I want to say thank you again to this panel very much for the discussion. It is sometimes a hard one to have, and I appreciate your bravery in jumping in and having that. We'll continue this conversation. Obviously, nobody's come up with a solution yet. So this is, I think, the most important one that we have in our industry today, right now. I also want to acknowledge Amber Center of Supernova Woman was also supposed to be on this panel and unfortunately had a medical crisis right just yesterday. So our healing wishes go out to her. And if you have a moment, check out supernovawomen.com, where that will share a lot about the work that Supernova is doing and working a lot like Brian does in the arena of helping folks get up and going out of the community. So